Okay, let's get prepared for our scavenger hunt of SEL resources. I'm going to walk you all the way through everything to make sure that you have the navigation tools for yourself in order to look for strategies or benchmarks, descriptors, and etc. So let's go to a great resource, which is Illinois Classroom in Action, IL Classrooms in Action. You can see that I go to this often, and we click on that. I'm not promoting Google, just was my source to use. And I can either go right down to social emotional learning, but for today I want to show you just a way of going through Illinois Classroom in Action. If you go to the top right, it says content areas, and I scroll down to social emotional learning, and you can see there's a lot of topics in here. I promote this as much as possible to use this source, and I don't get any income from it. It's just a great resource to use. So let's scroll down a little bit and start looking at what's available on Illinois Classroom in Action. Um, I want to focus on first, this is where you're going to find your standards for your 5 core competencies, trying to remember what they are: self-management, self-awareness, social awareness, interpersonal relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. And when I open them up here, I can choose what band that I'm going to focus on for my standards. So let's just click on 6th through 8th, and I'll download it here at the bottom. And now I can open it up. And so let's notice some things here. Here there is the goals at the top of each section here, and the goals specifically list the 5 core competencies. You can see self-awareness, you can see self-management skills, you can see social awareness down here, interpersonal relationship skills, and maintain positive relationships. And we kind of shorten that and go a little further, and you'll see decision-making skills and responsible. So I refer to it as responsible decision-making. So those are our goals, which list specifically the 5 core competencies. If we look over to the left, the A, B, and C under each goal is listing our standards. So recognize personal qualities and external supports is a standard. And then it lists some benchmarks, such as analyze factors that create stress or motivate successful performance. You have about 20 of these benchmarks, and you have 7, 8, 9, 10 standards. And we'll go a little farther, and we can check out a little description of each goal that's listed. Okay, so that's your first sheet that you have. If I back out here, minimize. You can also, and I say this is my best resource, I skip right by this and I focus on my performance descriptors by grade. So this is broken down by grade. And if I was pre-K, you can find your own pre-K standards, but I would refer to the K1 standards. You notice that 9 and 10 is early high school and 11, 12 is late high school. So let's go to our 3rd graders here. And I'm just going to zoom it in a little more. So again, we see the goal up here on the top. We see the standard here on the side. And then we're not seeing the benchmarks. What we are seeing is the complexity of stages for each standard. We refer to these as descriptors. So in stage B, there are 6 descriptors that literally describe what does it look like to identify and manage one's emotions and behavior. So you're looking at this grade level 3, there are about 14, 20 descriptors just for this one standard. Going from complexity from stage B, which you'll find this in grade 2, and stage C, which you see in grade 3, and stage D, you're going to see in grade 4. And I'll explain that. But stage A is K through 1. When you get to grade 2, you're going to have A, B, and C. So you'll see this progression. By the time you get to high school, it'll be in the J, H, and I category. Hopefully I said that correctly with memorizing my letters. But each one of these standards has a list of descriptors and stages. So not every single grade will have stage D. When you get to 8th grade, they don't have a stage D that is of lower complexity. So these are your learning descriptors. And you can sometimes find, like for example, in 1B, recognize personal qualities and external supports. You might find in stage B that when we look at this descriptor, you'll find the progression to it somewhere later on in stage C or stage D. So again, they're progressing students and describing specifically what it looks like. These are very easy to turn into my I can statements or my success criteria to say, has the student successfully progressed within social emotional learning, or what skills should I teach them next? So I'll jump out of here and I'm going to go right to grade 4 so you can see a little more. If we notice in grade 3, it was B, C, and D, we'll see in grade 4, it's C, D, and E for the stages. These are very specific and descriptive, which is great. Even I think this is a great example to demonstrate the steps of decision-making process, and it gives you the suggested decision-making process that you can teach for SEL. Are there alternatives? Of course, but it gives you one setup that is within this document. So you can imagine that as they get to, let's find out if I was right with the I. I think I went too far with my letters. IJ, I wasn't right. IJ, that you can see that it went all the way from A to I to J by the end for the late high school. And if we go to this document, you really just want to see what does it look like all the way across the board. You can see every grade. I'm going slow without taking the whole entire time. We see this progression in BCD. If we go to 5th grade, we see DEF. If we go to 7th grade, we got FGH and so on. So that's a great resource to use. And let's say specifically, I want to focus on this standard right here and this descriptor. I can go to another document to say, well, what strategy should I use? So if I close these up here, it says standard strategies. Wow, they've got everything on the site. And if I open this up and I'm thinking I'm working with 6th to 8th graders, I can open this document. And this one is separated by the standard and the benchmarks. And you can then read through and say, wow, this covers a lot of the descriptors that I looked at, not as specific, but it gives me an idea. Well, if I want to work on analyzing factors that create stress or motivate successful people, I might be able to brainstorm strategies to reduce stress, talking to a friend or trusted adult, physical exercise, which we see right here. If I'm working on maybe how to apologize and how to accept an apology, which fits in standard A, identify one's and manage one's emotional behaviors. So some really great documents here that you can use, and it gives you an idea of how I would embed that or how would I teach it in the classroom. The embedding comes from a little more innovation of saying, what am I currently reading or doing, and the current standards I have for only learning standards, and then tie them to these strategies in the classroom. Before we're done, I want to show you a couple more items that are just that you can kind of look through later on, but there are classroom posters that you can get through grade bands that you can open up. There are book lists that if I'm teaching in middle school that I have a full book list. And I was thinking, well, I really want to make sure I'm not siloing social emotional learning. I want to be as effective as possible. And I'm going to find books that relate to my classroom and then I can take some of these descriptors and embed them. So that's available. A little farther, if you want to catch out technology that supports SEL, this breaks it down by grade band, and they'll show you a whole bunch of technologies. And this is just some listed, but technologies that you can use and the descriptors, standards, or benchmarks that relate to them. And we also have for educators your newsletters. I want to say, how do I connect SEL to PE? How do I help out my students with trauma-informed or ACEs with a trauma-informed lens, or support them in sciences? That it does have some articles giving you ideas of what you can do. So you're going to do a scavenger hunt you go to ISBE and get the social emotional learning standards. I suggest going to Illinois Classrooms in Action and then finding SEL, maybe even doing a little bit of research beforehand, digging through this, defining what is a competency, what is a goal, what's a standard, what's a benchmark, what's a descriptor, and looking at the complexity of these descriptors, trying to get a better idea of what you would be teaching in the classroom so that when you do the next assignment, you will do well on that scavenger hunt. If you have any questions, you can always email me or contact me. And watch the video again. Thank you.